All right, thank you so much. You guys can be seated. Like you said, my name is Josh Crawford. I'm the Chief of Staff here at Overflow Church. That's just 3 words that mean lots of different things. I'm not going to bore you to death and explain all those details to you. That's what I do. Just help lead and serve our teams here, amongst other things. First, I want to say before we ever get started, happy birthday to my wife yesterday. She turned 46 years old. My wife is awesome. I love her birthday for many reasons. Yesterday, she spent it at a wedding with me. That's pretty awesome for her. I'm sure she loved that. My wife is super selfless, though. She doesn't care. She supports all our crazy dreams, all the things that we do. But every birthday, I love to read the comment section when I post something about her birthday, because to know how someone impacts other people, sometimes it takes relative strangers to see that impact. And so I'll see people that maybe we interacted with one time when we went to another state and met them and saw them at dinner or something, or we met them on a work trip or something like that. And they'll always say, oh, I just love Alicia, just so glad to know her. And it's in my post yesterday, I said, she's a light that's not only seen but felt, and that's true. People that meet her just immediately just love her and love hanging out with her and love being with her. She is obviously the diamond in our marriage, and I'm just so thankful for her. I say it every time I preach. Without her, I don't get to stand here, because if it wasn't for her loving me in a way that I had never been loved before, I wouldn't have been able to change and to accept who God was and love God and be where I'm at today. So I'm thankful for her. Happy birthday to my wife. I love you. Also, I want to say happy Father's Day to all the dads in the room. Typically in church culture, at Mother's Day, all the women show up oh, we love all the women. You guys are so great. And Father's Day, the men show up man, you suck. You're terrible. It's shame the men for being bad dads. I think that's kind of tacky. We're not going to do that today, actually. We're actually going to lift the dads up, because I want to say this. I am a dad. I have 3 wonderful children. My daughter is here this morning, sitting over there. Love having her here. And I understand how hard it is to be a dad, though. For us as men, we are trying to literally figure out and solve every single problem in our head before we ever voice it. So for men, usually they have 10,000 things going on up there all the time. And so until we can get it solved and figured out, we don't even like to talk about it, because we feel weak if we have to ask for help. We feel weak if we have to ask for any kind of assistance or say we don't know how to do something. And being a dad is terrifying sometimes. I know I became a dad at 21 years old. I was not ready to be a dad at all. That was the craziest moment of my life, probably, when I found out I'd be a dad in college. And I really had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't even good at it, to be honest with you. I was still a kid. I was 21, had no idea what I was doing. And at times, I just didn't do a very good job, wasn't very present. So I understand what that's like as well. So I want to also give grace to that. And I told my soon-to-be nephew yesterday, at the time he was my soon-to-be nephew, he's marrying my niece. I said, leadership is not making decisions. It's being an example. And I think for us as dads, we just have to understand that, I know we have to make decisions and hard decisions, but we're just to be an example for our wives, for our kids, and for all our family and friends. And I want to say thank you to all the men in the room who not only provide for your family, but lead your family. You're present with your family. You're intentional with your family. And you do all these things. And you also carry the weight that people don't even know about, because you've never shared it. Because we've always been told to share any kind of thing like that is to be weak. And it's not. It's not to be weak. But I want to say God loves you. Your family appreciates you. And happy Father's Day to all the dads in the room. And I want to say a special shout out. My dad's really going to hate me for this, and I'm sorry. I'll just say I'm sorry beforehand. I love you. But my dad is here today. My dad is a huge influence in my life when it comes to ministry, because I remember being a kid and watching my dad be a youth pastor and taking other kids that nobody else wanted. I mean, he always did that, and it was always so profound to me. And I remember he would bring kids into church. He'd make all the church people mad because they didn't want those rough kids. And that's my dad would just go get a bus, and he'd just go get them all, and he'd just bring them all in. And I don't think, if I never saw that, I don't think I could ever be where I'm at here, to do what we do here, because it doesn't matter. Everybody gets a shot, right? And I saw it as a kid. I saw him be that example. I saw him bring those kids in. And I just want to say happy Father's Day to you, Dad. I love you. And my dad also, he doesn't get to come to church very much. My dad has Parkinson's disease. He's had it for the last 7 years of his life. It's changed everything about his life, changed the whole scope of how he lives and how he has to do things. And that's super tough. But Dad, I commend you because you have never stopped fighting. I know you're hard to handle sometimes and you're stubborn as they come. But, and your wife can attest to that. But I'm just thankful for you, sir. Thank you for not giving up and keeping on pushing because I love you and I'm proud of you. All right? Okay. So, with all that out of the way, we are in week 24 of our series, week 24. That may not sound like a lot, but that's like half a year, okay? That's like we're approaching 6 months through the study called Rebel Manifesto. It's our series. It's about the Sermon on the Mount. It's in chapters 5, 6, and 7 in Matthew. We'll be in chapter 5 today. And while you're making your way there, if you're doing so, Pastor Alex has always kind of made sure to explain this series title. I'll do the same as well. While Jesus absolutely did make a way and create a way for us to be forgiven of our sins and made right with God through faith in his life, death, and resurrection, his mission went a lot further than that. When he rose from the grave, he ignited a rebellion against the power of sin in our lives, the darkness on earth, and the messed up ways of the world that don't fall in line with the ways of God. And he left us with this Sermon on the Mount that teaches us about the counter-cultural ways that life is supposed to be coming to anyone that's a part of his church or this rebellion. And so the last few messages have been about the Beatitudes. It's the whole section of Jesus' mountainside manifesto called the Beatitudes, and it's what he talks about living the blessed life. Now, for us, the blessed life, I think for most of us, we would think that is high social status, physical health, money, a life devoid of any sadness or pain. I think we would consider all of those things blessed, and that's not what Jesus considers blessed. Jesus considers extending scandalous mercy to others, leaning into grief, owning up to the fact that you're not enough. We talked about all those things, forgiveness. We talked about being a peacemaker, not a peacekeeper. Ellie talked about the pure in heart last Sunday, which was great. Thought Ellie did a great job with that. Also, Ellie is so pure in her heart. I thought that was a really easy message for her to preach because she is just so pure. I love meeting when we get to meet like once a month and we'll talk about her team, we'll talk about OYA and all those things. And with Ellie, some people think it's naive. My wife is the same way. They remind me a lot of each other. Ellie just tries to see the good in people. And my wife's the same way. And I get frustrated with that sometimes. I'm like, that person's not a good person. I'm like, no. I'm like, they're not. They're not a good person. So I'm the one that like pushes against that the most. But man, they just see it because they're pure in heart. And like not everyone's that way. And I love people that are that way. So she did a great job on that message. And today we're going to be in Matthew 5, 6. And it says this: blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And man, I feel like this was like a message for me. Definitely a message that I needed to hear repeatedly, and also a message that I am so actually excited to preach about. Because if I could sum up my entire life, it would be this epic war of what I thirst and hunger for. And I would say, if you had a screen and it was like a rivalry, like battle screen, wins and losses, I would say it would look more like Tennessee and Vanderbilt, where Tennessee is my flesh and Vanderbilt is my faith. And my flesh is so won many more battles than my faith when it comes to what I thirst and hunger for. Now, I'm going to kind of carry you back to this scene. I know we've been in this for 24 weeks, so I'm going to kind of go back and I'm going to let you like visualize what this looks like. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Alex has quoted him a couple of times. He wrote a book called The Cost of Discipleship. Now, this book is very like in your face. It's not like for the faint of heart. And like if you read it and you're not really like serious about Jesus, you'll probably get offended. I like to be offended because that helps me grow. And most people don't like to be offended, but it will actually question whether you really follow Jesus or not. Dietrich Bonhoeffer does a really good job of just being in your face about what it really costs to be a disciple. So he kind of sets the scene. This is what he says. He says, Jesus on the mountain, the multitudes and the disciples. The people see Jesus with his disciples who have gathered around him. Until recently, these men, they were just like everybody else. But then came the call of Jesus. And at once they left all and followed him. Since then, they have belonged to him, body and soul. Now they go with him, live with him, and follow him wherever he leads them. something unique has occurred to them. The disciples see the people, and this is where they come from. They see these people as the lost sheep, the house of Israel, the elect people of God, the national church. And when the call of Jesus had selected them from among those people, the disciples had done what was the only natural and necessary thing to do. They had followed the voice of the good shepherd because they knew his voice. I think that's really important. I don't think Jesus showed up on accident. I don't think he picked those guys on accident. It was never random. And they knew exactly who he was the moment he spoke to them. I think it was very clear they knew he was God, and they followed that. You think about these guys, they dropped everything they were doing, their entire life, to follow him. And we don't even know what that really entails, because there's a lot of things, a lot of facts we don't know about that. But they dropped everything, left what they were doing, quit their job. They went right with him wherever he followed. And this is what they got in return. Now they are living in want, the poorest of the poor, the sorest afflicted, and the hungriest of the hungry. They have only him, and this is good. And with him they have nothing, literally nothing in the world, but everything with and through God. And then Jesus says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Could you imagine telling your people who are probably starving a little bit, who have literally nothing left but you, and you're like, hey, blessed are those that hunger and thirst for something they can't even see. So what does blessed mean? We talked about that already a little bit. Blessed comes from the Greek word makarios. I think that's how you say it. If not, I don't speak Greek, so I'm fine with that. It means favored, happy in a sense, not in a worldly sense, but also I would use the two words like utter fulfillment. That's what it means. And every time we see blessed in the Beatitudes, I love it in the first part of this, blessed is always the first word. So the promise always comes first. And I love that. I love that language. I love how it's intentional. But when we see that, it's referring to us literally having nothing in the world, but everything with and through God. And I hope you see that pattern. Because we can't be blessed in and of the world. If we want to ask the question, like, why do we not think of God very often? It's because we are blessed in and of the world. I believe that. And we don't feel a need for him. We can only really be distracted. We're not really blessed. We're just distracted with a bunch of things to do. But when God is our resource for blessing, we can be blessed, but also our blessing will flow into other people's lives. I think that's the question you need to ask yourself. Is your blessed life overflowing into other people's lives? If you're taking notes, the title of the message today is Be Hungry. So we had a dad joke post on our social media yesterday, which I thought was really funny. Emmett did a really good job of that. And this is a dad joke, because I'm a dad. Obviously, I make terrible jokes. And be hungry is actually the Beatitudes and hungry, right? What are you hunger and thirst for? So that was as clever as I could get. So I always tell people, never expect a lot of like clever sermons from me. They're just going to be honest, because that's all I know how to be. So first, I want to talk about the word righteousness. This is one of the key words we have to clearly define in this verse, because if we don't, everything else gets messed up. Now, the word righteousness means in right standing with God. That's what it means. God's the judge. It's his stamp of approval. And as Christians, we want that. We want God's approval. We want to be in right standing with God, right? So we'll go, read the Bible, we'll pray, try to live a holy life, try to do all the right things, spend the time with God. We do that, though, with an expectation that we will get righteousness in return. That's why we do it. We're trying to earn God's approval to get his righteousness. And that's why we do it, to be righteous ourselves. So that becomes a transaction. That's how we treat a lot of these Beatitudes. Ellie talked about, the motive of the heart last week. And that's the problem. The problem is our motives. And our own works will never make us righteous with God. They will make us tired, though, and bitter. We'll become our own God eventually, because we will think we know everything. We think we'll become the judge. His ways will become our ways instead of our ways becoming his ways. And what happens is we make his name smaller because his love will depend on us. And that's where we get in the transaction. That's where the problem is. So everything that he wants to give us is lowered and smaller because we're making it depend on what we do. We were never meant to be righteous apart from God. So I bet some of us, though, feel as though righteousness is like something that we achieve. It's a destination. It's a place. And a lot of that's like our moral code. And that's okay to have a moral code. I have no problem with that. I think that's good to have a moral code. We need that. It keeps us having safe boundaries and things like that. But a lot of times we will get to the place where we are righteous, right? We define righteousness as how well our prayer life's going, how we are doing, and all of those things, all those disciplines. And like reading the Bible and prayer are great, but they are a watering system, okay? That's all they are. They are a watering system for you. You still have to produce fruit, okay? You know what I mean? You can be watered, you can have all those things going for you, but you still have to produce fruit. And just like the Pharisees, I think the Pharisees did everything. They memorized the Torah at a young age. They were so disciplined. They prayed. They spent time with God. And yet, they had no fruit. All they did was lord it over people. They took their righteousness and it became what? Self-righteousness. And that becomes the problem. Because self-righteousness is righteousness based on self. I don't think most of us desire to do that. I think if we're honest, we're trying to do the right thing. We want to please God. But in doing so, we really, really get so caught up in trying and get so caught up in what we are doing, that becomes the basis of our righteousness. So if I were to ask you, like, how righteous do you feel today? Some of you would say 10, some would say 0, some would say 2. There'd be a bunch of random answers for that. Now, the problem with measuring that yourself is this. When you get to a certain place, you become righteous, and then you get to tell everyone else how unrighteous they are. That's the problem. Happens every single time because our pride gets in the way. We become righteous. We are holier than thou. And now we get to judge everyone else. And that's what we're going to talk about for just a minute. I'm guilty of that as well. Like, don't think that I've never done that. I've done that plenty of times. I try to say this. I said this at 8, and I want to say this a little bit lighter because I just say things so harsh sometimes. I'm a very judgmental person. I think I said something crazy at 8, like, I'm the most judgmental person you know. I'm probably not the most judgmental person you know, but I'm very judgmental at times. I struggle with that because I see things, I overthink things about people. I'm always trying to discern where people are coming from. I don't trust everyone that comes to me, and I'm always trying to, like I said, I'm a dude, so I'm trying to figure the process out, figure out who they are. I'm trying to figure out if they're a good person or a bad person, if I can trust them, if I need to be around them. So I'm always doing that in my head with people. And so I can be that way as well. Now, there's certain things I don't struggle with. So when I see people struggle with things I don't struggle with, I judge them for that because that's not my struggle. And we all do that. We all have that problem. We're all human beings, and that's okay. It's a safe place to be a human today, I promise. Now, another thing, though, that this causes, it makes it really easy for us to cancel people, okay? And I'm going to talk about this in a way. I'm going to hit on 2 topics this morning about self-righteousness, the problem with it, what it causes us to do. And in the church, it makes us cancel people because this is what we do. We've talked about forgiveness, showing grace, showing mercy. That's really easy to do to friends and family, right? You know why it's so easy to show grace and mercy to your friends and to your family? Because you're going to get something in return. You get something back from that. It's not even a risk. Most of the time, you can because even if the problem doesn't get fixed, they're like, man, thank you so much for showing grace to me. You're such a nice person. Oh, no, man. It's like we're getting applauded for that from them, right? When you do that with a complete stranger, when you show grace, a scandalous grace and mercy to a complete stranger, you may not get that in return. And we don't want to do that. Much easier just to cancel that person out because we don't agree with how they feel. Church culture is really bad about that. And I'm talking about it from that angle because, look, I'm a church planner. I've been a part of a church for 10 years as far as in leadership. I've been a part of churches before that. That is the culture that I work in. So if you look at my TikTok feed, that's what you're going to see a lot of. It's just pastors and preachers and social media influencers that are Christians. You're going to see all of that and Ninja Creamy recipes, which, by the way, my wife bought me a Ninja Creamy yesterday for Father's Day. Oh, my gosh, dude. That's a game changer. I can eat healthy ice cream now, and that's like, I don't know, that's just the best thing ever. Maybe the greatest thing I've ever seen. So whoever created that, thank you. Thank you, God, for giving that person the wisdom to do that. But that's my TikTok feed. It's just like recipes and a bunch of random stuff and then all this Christian culture. It is the most toxic thing that I've ever seen, especially in the last few years. Because what we have is, since we have social media, everyone's a gatekeeper. Everyone's a gatekeeper to whatever their knowledge is, and so they cancel everybody that doesn't believe what they believe. And that's what the world sees us do on a consistent basis. It's video after video after video of us critiquing and telling everyone how stupid this guy is or how awful this person is. It's like Joel Osteen. he seems like a super nice guy. And everybody hates that guy. I'm like, man, what did he do? Like, he just seems really nice, really kind. I don't know. I've never met him. So it's like, but we do that just on a consistent basis. We are just tearing people down. And we know what that's like here. It's Overflow Church. How many people tear this church down on a consistent basis that don't understand it, that are jealous of it? We get it all the time. And that's okay. It's not our job to go out and like correct all those people. I've done that. And that's a really terrible idea because like, I remember when I used to get super offended when somebody would attack this church. And it was like my job to go find that person. And I did. One day I just walked into an office of some denominational office in another county. And I just walked in and said, hey, bro, you've been talking trash. I want to talk to you. And so we did. We had a really long conversation. He probably thought that was super weird. He's never spoke to me again. I don't know that much fruit came from that, right? So it's like, was that even worth it? You know what happened, though? I turned self-righteous. That's what I did. I forgot whose righteousness I represented. Then it became about me. He was attacking me and my character, right? The church is really, really bad about that. It's everywhere. My nephew and I, Colin, and his wife, Abia, we were talking the other night, and he told me, Colin's a good dude, man, good kid, got a bright future ahead of him. And he's really trying. He's really trying to like learn how to follow Jesus in his life. And so we were talking about that. And he goes, man, every video I see, and I know it's like a Christian video, I just go up. I just scroll up. I don't want to hear it because I don't know what's coming. And that's where we're at. It's just toxic and it's terrible. The second thing that I want to talk about as far as like what self-righteousness does, because all the problems that we have in our country, in our communities, in our world are all self-righteous problems, all right? They really, really are, because we're passionate about something, and then we get super self-righteous with it, all right? So I actually, before I even preached this message today, so I was writing it. I wrote it all on Thursday, finished it. I'd written it last week, then I finished it on Thursday, and God gave me something on Friday, and I was like, okay, I gotta write that in. And when I typed it in my computer, I was like, that's it. That's exactly what needed to be there. And I remember yesterday when I had to learn it, I was like, I gotta say this out loud. And I got real nervous. I was like, man, like, I don't know how this is gonna land. I was actually really like terrified to even talk about it, which I've talked about it before, but this is just a completely different angle. And so I got here this morning. I didn't sleep good last night. I remember being up, like thinking, I had my message opened on my phone, on my bed, laying there, like looking at this one little section going like, should I change that? Is there something else I can put there? I got nothing. Nothing ever happened. I never had another thought. I never could think of what to put there. Then it was like, I woke up this morning, I was like, I just got to say it. I just got to do it. Like, this is just part of it. You know, like God asked me to do this. I just got to be obedient to that. And so I came in here this morning, and poor Miss Cassandra Johnson over here, she's just working on guest experience at a desk. I said, hey, I got to talk to you right now. So I grabbed her up, and we went over there, and we started talking. I explained to her what was on my heart. So I needed feedback, like immediate feedback before I even did this, because I didn't even have the guts to do it, to be honest with you. And so she was like, no, that sounds really good. So I was like, okay, cool, got your blessing. If everybody else hates me, you're good with me, I'm good with that. I can roll with that. Here's the thing, and I want to address this from a very, very transparent point of view from my own personal life and how I grew up, and I want to just be really, really clear. This Thursday, we will celebrate what? Juneteenth. Now, for some people in the room, that's like, man, I'm just tired of hearing about that. That's a real opinion in the room, all right? Let's just engage that and deal with that emotion and deal with that thought, all right? Some people are going to celebrate that. But we live in an area, and this has been on my heart for the last probably 7 or 8 years, like really, really consistently, because I do believe I want to see a church that's in heaven, that has every race in the building worshiping God together. And so it's such a personal thing for me. I'm going to tell you, you're going to know why it's so personal in just a minute. But what we have where we live is there's two sides. There's still two sides, right? And that's hard, because the problem is we let someone else tell us how to feel and how to think. We let the news media portray how that looks and what we're supposed to feel about other people without ever having a conversation, all right? And that's not how we should do it. Now listen, I talked about this before from being white and that being my perspective and how it is wrong. Racism is wrong. There is no justified reason to be racist towards any race in our country ever, in this world ever. There's no room for it. Now, saying that, I want to say this. it's literally going to take both sides to lay down all their pain, their hurt, their anger, and their frustration, and all the self-righteous things that we feel towards one another. We're going to have to lay all that down if we ever want to solve that problem. I only know one way to solve the problem. It's forgiveness is first, right? So here's what I think. This is just my opinion. This is just kind of how I grew up too. I want you to know that, like, I talked to people in both communities all the time. I listen to stories, I hear things, I hear horrible things. I've shared personal experiences with you from this stage in a sermon, things I've heard at ball games that were terrible and awful that should never be said out loud. But I want you to understand, there's a reason those things happen. Because just like for someone in the black community, the things you've heard growing up that were hurtful, growing up in the white community were things I was taught to say, okay? That's a very real thing. That's a very honest thing and a very transparent thing. Because all our friends said those things, and they were awful. And there wasn't even any hatred in my heart at 8 or 9 years old and 10 years old when you say all those terrible things about other people, because you're just hearing them. You're indoctrinated and desensitized to all of those things over such a long period of time that you don't even know what they are anymore. You don't even know how wrong they are. And then you get into like high school, and I had friends. Like, I don't even know why I don't know why all those things, I can't explain where it comes from. You just hear things and you say things, right? What comes in here comes out of here. And you grow up that way. And I remember getting into high school and I was like, man, that sounds really terrible. And then when you actually have a conversation with someone on the other side of that and you hear how awful and hurtful that is, then you hear their story, then it helps change your perspective. We don't have any of that going on. All we have right now is a bunch of people keeping the peace, not making peace. Just like Pastor talked about. And I promise you, I don't have like this definite solution as what's going to solve this problem. I can only tell you it starts with forgiving each other and having a conversation and then moving forward. And that's really hard and really messy, and there's a lot involved in all of that. But I do know, until we take that step, because I will say this, it's really hard to understand, me, and this is not coming from a white person, this is coming from a pastor. Because I feel like God is challenging us as a community to do better. To stop looking at each other and going you're the problem, and go, no, we're the problem, all of us. Let's figure out a solution. How do we build a community that's not what we grew up in? How do we build a community that's not the same thing being regurgitated? Because the news is not helping us at all, okay? It's not. When you turn on the TV, it's telling you to hate somebody, right? It is. It's telling you. They're the problem. We go after them. We live in this Charlie Kirk society where our goal as Christians is to watch someone get tore down from the ground up and cheer them on. Like we're watching a gladiator in an arena. That's what we want. Get him, Charlie. Tear him down. He's an idiot. That's what we do. And we share it on Facebook. Look at this. We got this guy. He's a moron. Tore him down. That's how we are. We're so full of hate and we're so full of bitterness and anger and resentment. You can see it everywhere. I see it every day in my life. I see it when I'm walking, I'm running through town. I'll run by a car and they're like, ugh. I'm like, okay, sorry, dude. I don't even know who they are. They just made the worst face at me of all time. And it's you don't have to do anything to anyone to set them off. They're ready to go at all times. They idle at 80 miles an hour. And that's our society. That's what we're building with the internet right now. That's the culture we're building. Instead of willing to be sit down with someone and hear a story you've never heard before, because both sides are going to have to do that. It's both of us. It's not just white people. It's not just black people. It's both of us. And that's the two races. They're only ones I'm concerned with in this area because that's the problem. That's where all the underlying issues are that we're just too scared to have an open and honest conversation about. That's where they all lie. And that's the whole goal. But we're too busy being self-righteous at all times and worried about us and worried about ourselves to ever want to dip into what God can do in this situation to heal that, because that's what we want. In a marriage, you're not in it to win an argument. You're in it to heal together. You know what I mean? And just like any other relationship, that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to heal as a community. And I want to see that. And I know every time I get up here, I'm going to talk about race at some point. You're like, I'm so tired of you talking about that. Well, I'm sorry too. I'm actually not. Because that's just what God told me to talk to you about, and that's what I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to be obedient. Because I also think it's a problem too. Like, I know where I live, and I know, like, I don't live in the CNN world, but I live in the South, all right? And I know what exists here, and I know how people think, and I know what people say because I hear it all the time. So, but one thing we're gonna have to do is this. We're gonna have to be willing to forgive people just as much as we are holding them accountable, okay? A lot of forgiveness has to take place to move through this. A lot of forgiveness. And it's gonna take a lot of just uncomfortable forgiveness time after time after time after time. Because if we don't keep forgiving each other, we'll cancel each other eventually. When forgiveness runs out, cancellation returns, and then we stop having conversations and we cancel everybody in front of us. So that's the two things that I think about when I think about self-righteousness. I think about the church, because that's what I'm involved in the most. And I just think about culture in general, just how uptight we are, and how wired up we are, and how ready we are to go at somebody all the time. So the thing is, a lot of that is just a lack of self-awareness. And so to bring self-awareness, it takes conversation to do that as well. What happens though, is we're not self-aware, and we just keep working harder and harder and harder until, it's kind of like that, if you just work hard enough, you can achieve it, you can do it. But we get frustrated because we're left with the facts that we merely just aren't good enough. We're just not. Like, we're not good enough to, deserve God's righteousness. All of our acts don't add up to get this amount of righteousness from God. Like, they just don't, because we're flawed, we're human, we're broken. So we'll just keep overcompensating, trying harder, doing all those things until the righteousness that we hold in our hands looks nothing like anything we see in the Bible. Now, I want you to understand that this is not even the point of the verse, but that word needs to be clearly defined in your mind exactly what righteousness is. Because if you ever lose sight of that, you start going right back to you, self-righteous, doing the work, trying to earn God's love, trying to earn everybody else's respect. When you don't get it, it doesn't work. So let's go back to the Sermon on the Mount. Dietrich Bonhoeffer says this. I love this little last description that he puts out there. He says, not only do the followers of Jesus renounce their rights, they renounce their own righteousness too. They get no praise for their achievements or sacrifices. They cannot have righteousness except by hungering and thirsting for it. They always look forward to the future righteousness of God. They cannot establish it for themselves, though. That's important to know. Those who follow Jesus grow hungry and thirsty on the way. They are longing for the forgiveness of all sin, for complete renewal, for the renewal of the earth and the full establishment of God's law. They are still involved in the world's curse, though. They're still affected by its sin. He whom they follow must die on the cross with his own desperate cry of righteousness on his lips when he says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? But the disciple is not above his master. He follows in his steps. And it says this, happy are they who have the promise that they shall be filled. For the righteousness they receive will be no empty promise, but real satisfaction. They will eat the bread of life, the bliss of sinners. So let's get to the meat of this verse. It says the disciples are longing for the forgiveness of all sins, the complete renewal of the earth. And why are they so aware? Like, they are longing for something with Jesus, right? Do we feel the weight of that in our daily lives? Like, do we really feel the weight of sin, of the world? Do we feel the weight of everything I just talked about as we live through life? Do we feel that weight every day of all the things that are wrong in our society and our culture? Or are we hungry and thirsty for something else completely different? Here's where I found myself. I'm going to read this. This is from Solomon. It's in Ecclesiastes 2, 10 through 14, 17 and 26. It says this. This describes my life for a really, really long time. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chase after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. And then I turned my thoughts to consider wisdom and also madness and folly. And what more can the king's successor do than what has already been done? I saw that wisdom is better than folly, just as light is better than darkness. The wise have eyes in their heads while the fools walk in darkness. But then I came to realize that the same fate overtakes them both. So I hated life because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. To the person who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to the one who pleases God. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. So just like Solomon, this is what we do. We work hard, right? We like to see the reward of our work, all the things that we can earn. We love things, cars, houses, entertainment, the best education, to succeed by worldly standards, to dream, to achieve, all these things. And we look at our hands, and what do we realize when we look down at our hands? We're still gonna die. Everything that we do is gonna die. Everything. Everything that we work for, toil for, yearn for, dream, is all gonna die. And, you know, Solomon, he obviously asked God for wisdom. God gave it to him, and then he plundered all that. He made a lot of mistakes. I think we do the same thing. In Proverbs 21:21, it says this: whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor. In Proverbs 12:28, it says, in the way of righteousness there is life. Along that path is immortality. It's forever. In all of our ways, there's death. In righteousness, there's eternal life, forever. Because just like the disciples, our righteousness is his. It is not ours. All we have to do is just hunger and thirst for it. His righteousness is also our protection. My wife, literally every morning before school, when Zaya goes to school, she has a routine. And every morning, we're in the car. Now, even if she's not home, she travels quite a bit for work. So when she's not home, she texts us to make sure we're awake. Not to say that's never happened. There's been a couple times. We got up at 7:45, and we made it by 8. It's pretty rough, but we made it. But so I can't say that I've always been on time with my kid to school, but there's been a few, I've forgotten kids before. I like to pick them up. My daughter knows. It just happens, man. Just got a lot going on in my head. Sorry. Anyway, happy Father's Day. So the thing is, every morning, my wife will do the armor of godliness with Zion. Every morning. And there is not a morning that has never happened. It happens every morning. It is armor of godliness and prayer every single morning. And so she'll even say, like, chest plate up, and he'll go, righteousness. If he's in a bad mood, he'll mumble or whatever if he's really tired. But most of the time, like, it's important to her because she knows what it means. She knows what the armor of godliness does. It protects him. Because just like the chest plate protects all of the vital organs, the spiritual chest plate protects our heart and our mind from temptation, from spiritual attacks, doubts, deception, negative influences. Our heart needs that protection because our heart can lead us astray, obviously. And you put on that chest plate, it involves choosing several things: to live a righteous life, making choices that honor God, and seeking to be filled with his righteousness, because that's the promise of Matthew 6:33, which is, if we as his children hunger and thirst for his righteousness, we shall be filled, so that we can live a life for him and not ourselves, resulting in a life of freedom instead of being enslaved to sin. A life resulting in impact on earth that can ultimately change everyone around us. Now, here's the decision you have to make today. I'm going to explain it to you like this. Most of my life, a lot of my decisions just led completely to death. A lot of death to relationships, death to purpose, death to calling, death to a life that could have been filled with so much more than what I gave it. And I feel like, there was lives lost because of me. There's just so many things in my story that are really messy and really bad. And I had things, but I had no hope. And then when I lost those things, I lost the only hope that I could see. And I remember, this is the lowest point in my life. I remember sitting in Pathways in Jackson. It's a rehab facility. I just tried to kill myself. And you would think, and I'd been through a really, really just messy divorce. And I was just in a really bad spot. And a lot of times when you're alone, like, you just feel like you got nothing else, I had 2 kids who I didn't know how to live for yet. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to be that dad yet. I was still wallowing in my own self-pity and still feeling sorry for myself and still just stuck in this mode of, like, I got nothing. I got no one. I remember waking up and just longing for, like, a conversation. And then for the next several months, I was just on my own, really. I was embarrassed to be alive, if I'm just being honest with you. I was just super embarrassed to just live. I was living in so much shame and just so much guilt. And I remember, months went by, and I remember making a phone call. And I don't know if this was God leading me in this direction or not, but I needed a conversation with just a friend. I just needed to talk to somebody. So I called my buddy, Alicia, and just to talk through some things, and I did. And that led to a relationship. It led to us getting married. And then a year later, I had to deal with a lot of addictions, a lot of other things in my life. Then God gave me TVCC. He gave me Celebrate Recovery in Paris. Gave me a place to be honest. Gave me a place to be around people that could share my story and talk about things that I've been through. And I could hear someone else say, yeah, man, me too. And that gave me hope. Because there was somebody else out there that knew what I knew and was struggling with what I struggled with. Then I remember God carried us to Long Heights Baptist Church in McKenzie, where Kenny Carr and Brian Hill mentored me and helped me kind of redefine some of the rough edges in my life. I'm still pretty rough, but they helped me navigate some things and mature in some ways. So up until that point, I just went to church. Like a lot of you, I just attended, just showed up. And then I became a volunteer. And then after I became a volunteer, I was like, man, there's just something missing in my life. I got this thing, and I keep doing all this stuff. Just everything I've just said. We keep doing the thing, keep showing up, keep grinding through all these practices that we practice, and keep doing these things and going to small group. And I'm like, I'm missing something. What am I missing right now? And I told God, I remember praying in my car. You know the story, right? I'm driving down the road. I'm going to Jackson. I'm going to work. And I was like, I'm doing all this stuff. And I need something in return. I need this transaction to I need to be fulfilled with something. And God's like, just give me everything. That's what he wanted. That's the real transaction, where you just give it all to him, all your junk, all your past, present, and future, your whole life. God's not asking you to give your life to him to be a Christian. God is asking you to give your life to him to change the world. Because that is because I don't define Christians as that anymore. A Christian is a person that says they're saved and identifies as that. It's I identify as being a male. I mean, it's the same thing to me. That doesn't hold any weight to me anymore. I need to see what the fruit is of somebody that says, hey, I'm following Jesus. I'm all in. This is what I'm doing. That's what God wants. And you can make that choice today. And for some of you, you may not know the voice of God. Like the disciples knew that God was talking to them. You may not know you may not know that voice. Maybe today you need to hear that voice for the very first time and give your life over to Jesus in a fresh way for the first time, or for the first time in a long time. Maybe you need to know what that voice is. But I promise you, I've been through every phase of this. I have walked through every little thing where I was trying to figure it out, and God just kept saying, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Stop trying to figure it out. So glad I have a therapist who showed me how to stop figuring it out, because I don't have to do that anymore. And God has carried my entire life. I stopped betting on me. Betting on me was a lose-lose situation on what I can accomplish. Betting on God, when I entrusted everything and I bet on him to come through, he's came through every single time in my life. I've done nothing worth talking about without God's help and God's assistance and God's divine power. Everything that's ever happened, this church, everything that we've ever been a part of is all because of God. It's not because of me or anybody else. No one else up here holds any power. Only God holds the key and holds the power to righteousness. It's all his. And when you hunger and thirst for that, it will change what you desire. It'll change who you are. It'll change what you want. Because you won't want all the things that will fulfill you anymore. You'll want the things that are going to help the world around you. I'm telling you, it changes everything about you. I want everybody to stand this morning. And we're going to pray out loud. We're going to pray with some passion this morning. Because we used to have a saying around here, every Sunday's life or death, right? Every Sunday's life or death. For someone in this room, if we're loud enough, if people think we care enough, it could change their entire life, right? So when we pray this prayer, we're going to pray it together. And if you make a fresh start today, our prayer team's going to come down here. They're going to be down front. You guys can go ahead and make your way down here. When you raise your hand today, don't let shame keep your hand down. But don't let shame keep your body in that seat either. Because these people want to pray with you. Don't make a decision and then leave unchanged. Leave without talking to anybody. Because these people are here to pray with you, all right? Let's close our eyes. Let's lift our hands. And let's repeat this prayer. Jesus, today, I give you everything. I hunger and thirst for your righteousness. I want you to take control of my life. I'm turning it all over to you. I believe that you died and rose again to save me and deliver me from my sin and to forgive me forever. In your name, amen. All right, if you made that first shot this morning, I want you to raise your hand on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. Raise that hand. All right. If you raised your hand this morning, I want you to come down front. I want you to pray with somebody. Give them your time. Let them pray over you. Don't walk out of here just with your hand raised. We're going to go back into worship. You guys ready?